Hello, my name's Amy, as you all know me, and I'm here to give you a little presentation on childhood obesity and the effects of exercise. Childhood obesity is a growing public health concern. There are several factors that influence obesity, including advances in technology, cutbacks in elementary school physical education programs, and increasing sedentary lifestyles. At least 41 million children younger than 5 years of age are overweight or obese. And there's not any set policy action alone that can address this increasing global obesity epidemic. Obesity is defined as excess body fat. It's also defined as a body mass index at or above the 95th percentile of the sex-specific CDC BMI for age growth chart. There are 12.7 million children and adolescents that are categorized as being obese. There's another 12.4 of them that are already considered to be overweight. So that's a lot of kids. Thanks to research, the factors associated with obesity are better understood. Factors such as dietary intake, physical activity, sedentary behavior are risk factors, along with how their genetics are, their age, their gender, their parents' lifestyle, and their work-related demands. There's a lot of factors that influence these kids. Obesity and being overweight in childhood is known to have a significant impact on their physical health as well as their psychological health. Ever-increasing sedentary behaviors have decreased the amount of time spent in physical activity, thanks to game systems and cable television, Netflix. It's a whole lot easier to stay inside and sit around and be entertained than to go outside and play and get some exercise. There are lots of community influences that can help work towards lowering childhood obesity, such as, programs in daycare facilities, in the schools, community establishments such as like the YMCA, that can have a definite impact on their diet and their physical activity, based on the services that they can offer. I have several literature reviews that have researched different aspects of this issue. One of them, conducted in China, assessed the effectiveness of a school-based physical activity intervention for 12 weeks on obesity and health-related outcomes in school children. It consisted of a multi-component physical activity intervention for 12 weeks. And these kids were measured before and after the intervention by measuring their body mass index, their waist circumference, skin fold thickness, serum lipids, fasting blood glucose, and the amount of physical activity that they underwent. And as a result of the intervention, there's BMIs were significantly lower with the increased physical activity. Another study was testing school-based health promotion programs and whether or not they exacerbated or reduced inequalities in health in these kids. This was a 2-year study, and it measured physical activity, and was found that school-based health promotion did in fact influence the inequalities of these students and balanced them out better. Another study was about the state mandated amount of physical education time during school. Through this testing, it was determined that engaging in physical activity 3 times a week for 45 minutes showed that the students were able to meet the recommended amount of physical activity a week deemed necessary to prevent obesity. Another one studied the risk factors associated with being overweight and obesity. There are several risk factors for overweight and obesity, including having at least one overweight parent at home. So it's kind of a family deal. It's not just the kids. Another risk factor is spending more than 4 hours in sedentary activities, and having physical activity lasting a minimum of 30 minutes a day is not enough. The last study that I researched was a 12-month multi-component obesity prevention intervention research study. There were several interventions utilized in this study, including training teachers on nutrition and how to improve the quality of their physical exercise classes. The children's nutrition knowledge, nutrition status, duration of physical exercise in school, and the intensity of the exercise were all measured and compared with other students. And it was determined that the intervention was effective in controlling obesity, but not in preventing it in the first place. So it will take more than just increased amounts of exercise to prevent obesity in children, but that is certainly a good place to start. My PICO question for this research proposal is, in elementary school-age children, does increased physical activity time of 3 times per week during school hours help reduce the risk of childhood obesity compared to physical activity time of once per week during school hours, evidenced by a reduction in body mass index measurements at the end of the school year compared to the beginning of the school year? The main intervention in reducing the risk of childhood obesity is, of course, increased physical activity. On average, organized physical activity in schools occurs once a week now as compared to 3 times a week in the past. Evidence shows that moderate to vigorous physical activity of a minimum of 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, got the best results as far as student BMI changes were concerned. But the desired outcome for this intervention would be a significant drop in BMI measurements, which would be more than 30 minutes 3 times a week. The theoretical framework for my research project is the self-care deficit theory from Dorothea Oram. This theory centers around an individual and how they perform in order to maintain life, health, and their well-being. If they do daily activities sufficient enough to make sure that they have enough air, they have enough food, they have enough water, they prevent hazards to themselves and pretty much take care of their general well-being. With relation to my research, this includes people being responsible for their own care and helping others in their families who need care, such as parents helping their children be healthy individuals. This research project would be a quantitative experiment with a control group and an experimental group of elementary school-age children. The experimental group would consist of students in 2 different elementary schools in southern Indiana. I have determined that at least 250 students in each school need to participate in order to have a good size test group. The intervention group will have physical activity 3 times a week of more than 30 minutes. And the control group will have their regular once per week physical activity. This would be during school attendance hours only, and each participating student would be weighed at the beginning of the school year and their body mass index calculated, and then weighed and measured again at the end of the school year to see the difference. The students would be compared against each other, and then the students would be compared with the experimental group and the control group just to see what the difference is there. Of course, when they register for school, that's when they can sign up to participate. So they would have consent, and then each student would be assigned a number, ensuring confidentiality. Once all the data is collected, then t-tests would be used to compare the results and come up with an average. Weight loss for experimental group versus a control group. So, in conclusion, the growing issue of childhood obesity is concerning, to say the least. I know it's from personal experience. The most concerning part is that it's totally preventable. But it takes parents, teachers, and society in general to all work together to make this issue a thing of the past. More research needs to be done to find more efficient ways for people to get involved to help remove childhood obesity from having a detrimental impact on the future society. Eliminating childhood obesity would significantly impact adult obesity. And taking obesity out of the comorbidities equation in adults would be a huge determining factor for positive patient outcomes. Thank you.